The reason sin came into the world through Adam and Eve is because God told Adam directly not to eat of the fruit. Now we are in our current existence where we are born into sin. Okay, the Bible says in Isaiah chapter 53, all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way. Man is fallen, and we have to get to a place where we can be reconciled back to God. And so as you move in the Bible, you move from Adam, and then Adam has Seth, and then from the line of Seth comes Noah. And then God looked at the earth and he saw the wickedness, and it hurt his heart, so he flooded the earth, and Noah was saved. Noah's family was saved. All of human population came back out of Noah, and then from Noah we get to Abraham, and then from Abraham we get to Jacob, and then we move to Moses. Now, God promised Abraham that his descendants would be like the stars. So when we're looking in the Bible, pre-Moses, we're looking at a group of people that really don't have a written law. And the reason that they don't have a written law is because the expectation was that the patriarch, whoever was the father, would guide his family, guide the children, and that patriarch had more or less a direct connection with God. There weren't very many people at that time. It wasn't like 50,000 people that, Abraham was directing. He was just directing his own family. But as the people got greater and greater and greater and greater, and then grew into the Israelites, then it came to a time period where God had to create the law. He had to write the law down. So, Moses took the people and they escaped across the Red Sea, and now they're in the desert, and they're wandering around, and God takes Moses up to the top of a mountain. I don't want to misquote, of a mountain, and he writes down all of the laws. Okay, and then he brings the laws down, and he is going to explain it to the people. But at this time, and I apologize, I didn't write all of these Bible verses down, so I'm just going to tell you what I remember. Okay, so he comes down and he sees all of the people worshiping this golden calf. Now, Moses, when he was called by God, he said to God, I am not the right person. I stutter, I'm nervous, I can't speak, I am not the right person, I don't want to do this, I can't be this. And God said, you are the right person, you are the person I've called, and I will put Aaron with you so that Aaron can speak for you. And Aaron was his brother. So from the very beginning of Moses' calling, Moses and Aaron are always together, and Moses communicates God's message to Aaron, and Aaron communicates God's message to the people, or he communicates God's message to Pharaoh, whatever needs to happen. So he goes on top of this mountain, and he's on there for an extended period of time. I believe it's 40 days, but I'm not sure. And then he comes back down, and he has the tablets, and he sees that Aaron has created a golden calf for the people. And Aaron presented it to the people, this golden calf, and he said, this is your God that helped you escape from the Egyptians. Let's worship this God, and let's, have a feast and offer sacrifices and do everything that the Egyptians would have done to one of their false idols. And so the people had done that. He comes down and he sees the wickedness. And at this point, God says, just leave me alone in my wrath. I'm going to destroy all these people, and I will create a new generation through just you, Moses. And Moses turns to God and he says, no, please do not do this. And I don't remember the exact scripture. I'll just post whatever I put. I'll just post the scriptures down below, but I do remember the message. So the message is this. The first thing is Moses looks back and he says, God, the Egyptians are going to say that you rescued your people out of Egypt just to bring them out here in the desert and kill them. And at that time, you need to understand in humanity, God's purpose is to be glorified. He needs to be glorified. And he was glorified by the Israelites because those were God's chosen people and they abided by the laws, and they were the closest to sanctified and a reflection of a group of people that were godly and were close to God and doing what God expected humans to do. But in the course of their existence, God had many miracles happen to them, and He kept them. He kept them safe, and He kept them, fed them, and did everything. And all the other groups of people in the world knew that the Israelites were God's people, and so they, in their hearts, glorified God. I mean, they may have been worshiping other people, but some of them were also in the back of their minds or in the front of their minds saying, wow, the God of Israel is the real God, regardless of what they were worshiping, because we saw our soldiers be swept into the Red Sea, or we saw their army overtake us. We've been scared because we know that God is with the Israelites. So that's just something to consider, that's a big thing for God, is for God to be glorified. And so that's why Moses interceded on the Israelites' behalf and said, no, please, the Egyptians will just say you brought your people out here to kill them. And then the second thing he said was, remember your promise, remember your covenant to Abraham. You can't, please don't do this. You promised this person this, this, and this. And essentially, God stepped away from his wrath and he was like, okay. And at the end of that, he said, okay, but he said, these people will not enter the promised land. So from that point, that was the point where God said, I'll just drag you guys through the desert until this generation dies, and then I'll take the new generation into the promised land. Okay? And so at that point, Moses ground up the calf, and he made people drink the stuff that comes when you ground up, a golden calf or whatever. He made people drink it, and he went through and he sanctified the camp. So now we go fast forward. Let's just fast forward a little bit further. And at this point now, Aaron and Moses have created the tent, and they've created the place where they're going to worship. And Aaron is now the priest, and his children are working inside the temple. Okay, and so his two children, he had two sons, and they were offering incense to God. So they were just, they were just getting the incense, and they were putting the incense on these little burners or whatever, and they were turning around and they were offering it. And it was unauthorized. So when they offered it, flames came down from heaven, and it consumed them, and they died. And Aaron stood there looking at his sons, and Moses was right there too. And as Moses turns around and he looks to his brother Aaron, he said, God said that the people close to me must be sanctified. To the people in all the world, I will be glorified, but the people close to me must be sanctified. So what that means is there's a very little room for mistakes and all types of sin for the people who are inside this temple. The priests, everything has to be done in a very specific way, a very holy way, and if you are not following directions, you're going to die. And so Aaron had to just suck it up, have two people take his sons outside the camp, and then he went back to doing all of his rituals, and he did not mourn, he just moved forward. Okay, so that's something for you to understand as a big picture. God should be glorified to all the people, but to the people close to him, they need to be sanctified, which means they need to be abiding by God's law. Okay, so now as we move forward, we're moving forward, we're with these people. Remember, these are the Israelites. They're walking through the desert, and they're not going to go to the promised land because they're the wicked generation. So we're just kind of waiting for them to die out, and then for the promise for the next generation to be able to go in. And during this time period, the people were just sick of it. They were sick of the manna. They were sick. They kept saying and complaining against Aaron and complaining against God, like, why did you take us out of Egypt? We may have been slaves, but at least we had garlic and onions. At least we had like these things. We're so sick of this manna. We don't want to eat this manna anymore. And in God's fury, he sent venomous serpents onto the camp, the whole camp of Israel. And these serpents, when they bit the people died. And after a certain number of deaths, I don't remember the exact number, but after a certain number of deaths, the people realized that the serpents were from God. They were sinning against God and that God was angry. And they came to Moses again and they said, Moses, will you please intercede for us? Will you please take these serpents away? And Moses said, okay. And Moses went to God and he asked God, will you take the serpents away? And God told him, this is what we're going to do. You can take a bronze block and make a statue of a serpent and put it in the center of the camp. And if anybody is bit by the serpent, then they can get up and they can go look at this bronze statue and they will be saved. They will live, okay? So this portion is exceedingly important in understanding how God works, okay? God does not remove Satan from our lives, and he doesn't remove the serpents from our lives. He just gives us the opportunity to live if we choose it. And I am certain that in that camp, there were people who were bit by a serpent and they were laying down and their loved one came to them and they said, go to the center of the camp, go look at the serpent, go look at that bronze statue and you will live. And they were probably laying in their beds saying, that's stupid, that doesn't work. Why would, if I got venom in my veins, why would looking at a statue save me? And by structuring life in this way, by structuring salvation in this way, God is separating the people that are faithless from the people who are faithful. Okay? They're laying in their bed. No, that's stupid. I'm not going to go. When you get bit by a venomous serpent, you only have so much time to get over there. And then you have the people who are just sitting there like hesitating, thinking like, well, I heard that, Enoch or whatever, that's another person in the Bible, I just made up a name, down the way had this anti-venom, I'm going to go try that first. And they go somewhere else seeking life to take the anti-venom, and they don't go to the center of the camp. Because they're buying lies. They're buying Satan. They want to rely on their own thinking. They don't want to trust God. They don't want to live a life under God. They want to live by their own, of their own volition. And so God separates the people in this manner. He separates the faithless from the faithful.